So in this situation, I've just got I've thought about you because you said that the reason you got a law degree was because a lawyer screwed you one time. And I feel like that this lawyer has put everything in this contract. And I told my seller, I said, you know what? From the very beginning, when we got that contract, I should have pushed back and said, nope, you won't be the right buyer if you're, because we have spent almost 3 weeks going back and forth. We're closed tomorrow,
Ah,
which is good, but it's been horrible for me to have to read. I feel very obligated. I need to read everything, even though both parties have an attorney. Um, so I just this turn, I just feel like he's waiting for something to sue on with the way he wrote the contract. So I'm really trying to, um, yeah, I mean, I always would anyway, do what was right, but
yeah.
I'm just concerned that if in the LOI he said 8 a.m., but the purchase agreement didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, the purchase agreement rules,
Yeah.
and we can name it like we want to name it.
Right. I would
So,
just write an amendment, have the parties agree on a time, or like I said, as for that job, I would just carve out that job. Buyer and seller both know that job is still in progress, right?
well, the buyer didn't know about it, and I mean, we just didn't, that one, we didn't say anything. The seller's just telling me, I could finish this either Wednesday or no later than day of closing. I said, if that's the case, we'll just say 5 o'clock or end of business day, everything belongs to you. So
Yeah, I would
that
say
means,
end of day, not even end of business day, because that gives you until 11:59 p.m., the end of the day of closing.
okay,
So,
okay,
and you can even specify 11:59 p.m.
okay. And I've done that before. So like say we
Yeah.
close, just being very detailed here. So you close tomorrow, which is the whatever day that is.
15.
I've lost track. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and the closing is at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
We've not designated a time for that switchover. When is it actually if it's not designated? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what to do that's not going to get us in a bind with that other attorney since
Yeah.
closing's tomorrow.
So, what's interesting to me is that closing it's a contractual closing, right? It's the
Okay.
parties have agreed that the closing is this day. I mean, so here in California, we use escrow companies. We don't use closing attorneys, but literally we've had parties wanted the deal to close at the end of the month. And the end of the month, which, would be, let's say, August 31st. If that happened to be on a Saturday or Sunday, it doesn't matter. It's a contractual closing. Parties are still agreeing that's when it closed. Now, escrow is not going to disperse funds until they get
Right.
back in the office Monday or Tuesday. And our escrow companies don't disperse funds at the closing table. And I think that's where things may
Uh,
be a little different because we have certain adjustments and other things that may be made prior to the actual disbursements going out. And so I think when you're dealing with closing attorneys, I think it's the documents are signed and the checks are distributed or the wires are drafted or
yeah,
whatever, right then and there.
true.
And that, I mean, it's really hard to have all the details nailed down in order to do that.
So with
So
that being the case, where we do use closing attorneys, the money will be dispersed tomorrow by noon. Um, how do we
but
work
again,
that?
that's because again, it's a contractual thing between the parties. So if the parties agree that
Okay.
disbursements will take place the following day, or if the parties agree that the disbursements will, that they close, the closing documents are all signed, but the change of possession is at midnight or whatever the parties agree to, that's what they agree to. So the fact that all the closing documents are signed,
Yeah.
I mean, you can even have everybody sign closing documents, but if the closing document says that closing actually takes place on August 21st, at 11:59 p.m., then
Right.
all your documents are done. But hey, guess what? It's not closing until August 21st. So closing is just a
Right.
contractual term.
Then I've read that APA so many times and I could have missed something, but I'll go back and check the time. But in the event that it doesn't stipulate a time and the buyer was told by me that revenues and expenses belong to the seller until end of day on the day of closing, and money has been dispersed by then,
Yeah.
am I legally okay?
Well, I mean, I think so, because usually there's a period of time. So here's the other thing. You got a transition period after closing.
Yes.
Oftentimes, part of that transition is, hey, seller has a merchant account. And if there, if he has a merchant account, some terminal or something, those don't necessarily get
Right.
reprogrammed overnight. And so
Right.
there's always adjustments that have to be made, and true ups that have to be made between
Yes.
buyer and seller anyways.
Okay.
Because, for those payments that come in, any payments that come into the seller's account need to be given, or, given to the buyer typically. But yeah,